What is up, Combat Crusaders? UFC 315 was a night full of blood, fireworks, and some surprises. So, we have ourselves a new welterweight champion. That was such a dogfight, many fights within a fight. So, Combat Crusaders, let's give it a review, start to finish. Our early prelims were off to a violent start. That's the thing, is you really, you never want to miss those early prelims because they often deliver. Beksat Almakhan versus Brad Katona. Beksat, he's always smiling. He just looks like such a nice, energetic person, and he really puts on the fireworks in there. He got it done quick. Round one, finish. We're moving on. We gotta find some things to fill the time with. I don't know if you saw Brendan's hockey hype, but he's a hockey fan apparently. Fitzy, as John would call him, and that's one of the things we used to buy the time because we had a lot of finishes. Our next fight, we had featherweights Daniel Santos, Willie Cat going against Lee Zhong Young, and that was a banger. That was a unanimous decision in favor of Daniel, but it was a banger. It was a great fight because, Zhang Yang, he had his moments. But ultimately Daniel put on that gas. And we haven't seen him since 2023, so that was a super exciting return. Santos really likes to go for those spinning attacks. That's who he is, but they weren't working. And so he made the adjustments, and we love to see that. And that's how he was able to get the unanimous decision, is he made those adjustments and took those 2 rounds and caused some real violence, some real damage. That was a great fight. And then speaking of damage, we had ourselves a bit of a visit to the ICU. So Marc-Andre Barriault versus Bruno Silva. Bruno, one of our fighters who came in a little Chubbs McGee. He missed weight, so that's kind of a rough sign. And this was Marc-Andre's 15th UFC appearance after a kind of a rough 2024, losing all of those fights, but he came back with a bang. Yes, so very quickly, Marky Mark went straight for the clinch, and he got it done. The first elbow was rough, but we got a couple more shots in too as Bruno was falling to the canvas, and he fell on his face, and rumor has it his skull could be cracked, and he was taken out of the octagon in a stretcher. Very, very brutal. It's kind of a night of revenge of the elbow. Okay, maybe revenge is a strong word, but vengeance of the elbow, well, that's a strong word as well. Attack of the elbow, that really doesn't work. Lots of elbows tonight, and that was probably the first very memorable elbow. Yes, Bruno was on the mat for a while, so we're wishing him well. He was not exactly awake as he was been taken to the hospital. Yes. But Marc-Andre's career saved, it was a really kind of a career defining matchup for both men. Bruno also coming in on a pretty decent losing streak, and a lot of times they'll cut you after 2. So the fact that Marc-Andre was coming in with 3 losses, he really needed to get it done. He got it done with violence. Round 1 KO via clinch blows for Barriault. It's looking good for Canada. Then we make it to our prelims. We have Navajo Sterling versus Ivan Ursulan. That was a pretty exciting light heavyweight bout. A pretty, normal, tentative back and forth in the first round. But then we get some clinch grind up against the fence, and you know how the fans feel about that. In those first 2 rounds, it was looking pretty even, pretty, not a lot of crazy things were happening, and then it was crazy. And then all of a sudden, Navajo hits Ivan Ursulan, and he's face down on the mat, and it looks like it's over. Like, I thought that was it, and it was a very, very strong finish for Navajo, but it wasn't a finish in the fight because Ivan popped right back up and, came back to life. Yes, so that was a pretty exciting unanimous decision win for Sterling, and that last round definitely clinched the win because of such a heavy drop. But it was pretty cool to see Ursulan say, "No, I'm not dead. I'm not dead yet." Then we had another light heavyweight bout right after that: Modestas Bukauskas versus Ion Cutelaba, the illustrious Cutelaba. Ion Cutelaba, I love the crazy energy he was bringing. He He had Bruce Buffer like backing up, like, afraid for his life because he was just trying to announce his name. And I know he's used to people getting up in his space, but Ian was trying to like move him backwards. Okay, whatever. It's not important, but it was just very funny, little awkward moment. Trying to get Eon trying to get the fight started before the fight has started. Classic. And Eon, in Eon, that's the thing. He's trying to get the fight started before it started. And then once the fight did start, he was much heavier on the pressure and just the output. So maybe he wasn't landing percentage wise more, but just because his output was more, he took those 2 rounds. Like, in my opinion, those were like pretty solid. And Modestas was kind of being tentative, kind of playing it safe, being the more defensive fighter and not able to get a lot done in that way. Ian was also mixing in the low kicks. He's always trying to hit every target. We love to see that. Those are always my favorite moments whenever we call in Dean Thomas, always giving some great voice, some great reason. He's such a smart coach, and he was saying that Modestus found himself watching the fight, not exactly playing, like I said, the offensive role, kind of sitting back, responding to what was happening. And when you only got three rounds, you gotta get some offense in there. Though it was pretty noticeable that when Modestus was putting it together, he was landing for sure. Like when he was putting his combinations out there, they were hitting, he was getting accurate with it. I am personally aligned with DC, who called this the Montreal screw job, because it did result in a split decision in favor of Modestas, and I think that was Ian Kutilava's fight. But let me know what you think. Was that the Montreal screw job, or was it the Jose Aldo fight? I'd love to know your thoughts, but we'll get there. Then we had a performance of the night moment. We've been having a lot of those already, though. Jasmine Jasudavicius going against Jessica Andrade. Jessica, such a veteran in the sport, trying to make her way to 40 fights in the UFC. This is her 29th fight, so I believe in her. I definitely do. This fight was really quick and exciting, and Jasmine had such a for real performance of the night moment. She does her thing. She's very good at getting the takedown, but usually she kind of uses her wrestling as like a method to brawl. And instead, she gets in round 1 her first ever rear naked choke win, first pro win of that kind against Jessica Andrade, who is she's a submitterton herself. So that was so cool, and she gets her black belt earned. Black belt earned. That is so fun. Hell yeah. Jasmine is so exciting, and she is really on her way to the top. She's on a 5-fight winning streak. She definitely deserves that number 1 contender spot. I think so. Yes, Jasmine, that was amazing. Definitely a performance of the night moment. And then we have our featured prelim, little drama, okay, maybe manufactured, but drama nonetheless, between Mike Malott, who I always want to say Mike Malot every time I read his name. It's Mike Malott, we know this, but anyway, we had Mike Malott against Chuck Buffalo, welterweight, Sassy Buffalo, Scumbag Buffalo, as he would refer to. He referred to himself as a scumbag, okay? His words, not mine. Scumbag Buffalo. Yeah, that fight played out exactly how many predicted, including how Mike Malott himself articulated that it was going to be kind of a bull matador situation, with Mike being the matador, Mike Matador, and Chuck Buffalo, bull Buffalo. Wait, okay. Let's not get crazy, but that actually makes sense. Chuck is Charles Chucky, he's a very forward pressure kind of fighter, and that's definitely what he was putting out there in round 1. And Mike was vibing it out, he was feeling it. And the crowd was feeling very proud of their Canadian heritage, and they were throwing out some FU Radkeys. 3 or 4 times the crowd got going with it. I was like, oh, on ESPN, on cable television. We love it. It was a lot of fun. That was crazy. Charles wasn't being super reckless out there. While he was putting on the forward pressure, he wasn't exactly making it a dirty fight, which is where he definitely shines. So it was staying Pretty technical all throughout that round one. Not a lot of gritty, crazy moments in there, but round two. In round two, we very quickly find ourselves in an exchange of the hook, and Mike connects with some major power, and he knocks Radke down hardcore and follows up with a couple of more shots. Mouthpiece is lost. Mike Malott shows what he is made of, and he shows how that technique can make its way for some violent moments. I mean, he is a finisher. He is a finisher. He was so happy to talk to DC, and he is no negativity, only positivity, shedding some tears of joy. Oh, Canada. Oh, Canada. I don't know the Canadian anthem, but feel free to sing it yourself. Yes, it was looking good. Two really big wins for Canada back to back. Mike Malott he's a G. He really is. Then we make it our way to the main card, and we have Brendan on the move. I don't think we've ever seen Brendan as our roving reporter, as our reporter on the move. We've never had to see Brendan, have to balance walking and talking at the same time, and that was pretty fun to see. He got booted from the desk because if John's around, but that was fun. It was kind of a bit of a surprise to see him out there, on the floor. Yes. So our first fight was a last minute save. So Kyle Prepelic, thank you. He saved this fight. He stepped up and he lived up to his personal motto, something along the lines of, you got to take risks to create opportunity. And that's exactly what he did, stepping up to fight Benoit Saint Denis, who is known for being a violent fighter and is also ranked in the top 15. So that's crazy of Kyle, but the good kind of crazy. Came in on just a couple days' notice. I think the fight fell out on Tuesday, and Benoit coming in with a 100% finish rate, which is a gift and a curse. But in this case, it was a gift. Round one, we find ourselves in a little bit of a sitting fence moment. The crowd's hating it, but Benoit's able to get a little bit of violence in, and he tosses Kyle as soon as he gets up, so that gets a little bit of a woo, and then he's got him trapped in a body triangle, and he takes a decent beating. That's the story of round one. We make it to round two, and we make our way to war. And Kyle is surviving. Kyle is surviving the war. It's Elbows 101. The vengeance of the elbows is back. This is a night full of elbows. Shout out to Kyle as he gets dragged to the mat by BSD, and he gets trapped there and softened up a bit. And, violent Saint Denis shows who he is and gets that round two arm triangle finish after, soften Kyle up a little bit, making him a little bit disoriented, and then goes in for the kill like the finisher he is. So still 100% finish rate for God of War Saint Denis. Then we have a very technical, very exciting, very dominant performance in the women's flyweight. Number one, Alexa Grasso versus rising star Natalia Silva, who made her way to number 5, now is jumped the rankings again. This fight was very, very cool. Alexa was looking dialed in as she made her way and was working the jab, but couldn't quite find the violence. Silva's fighting style is so terrifying. All of the feints that are coming from the hips and the constant kicking that is mixed in with all of these feints. Like, the feints never stop, the kicks never stop. It really is terrifying. And she got Alexa in the face with a kick early that was so brutal. But Alexa, she's a tough cookie, so she just took it like a champ. Took it like the former champ. She's made of that grit and that gold. And it was, yes. And Natalia continued to pour on some of that kick action, of course. Another thing that makes Natalia so difficult, though, is that she's able to find the angle. She's constantly stepping off of the center line and just creating space and showing that athleticism. So she's moving a lot, but staying energetic and showing that cardio. So that is really impressive to see. And she is just so hard to pin down. And that was a lot of what Alexa seemed to be struggling with, is just getting in there and taking the space away from Natalia. Alexa, throughout the whole fight was really hunting for that finishing shot. You know, she was really looking for it, and all the times that she was hit, she was tough as usual, but every time she was trying to mix in a takedown, Natalia snuffed it. She's that's another part of her game as well. She's got a very effective takedown defense, and she showed that in that fight as well. She really is just such a star out there, put on such an incredible performance to get a unanimous decision win over a serious beast, Alexa Grasso. That was such a cool fight. And Natalia is just she seems like such a sweet human being. First thing she says is, Jesus is my love. And the smile on her face is so golden, really two remarkable women. And what a showcase for Natalia. That was incredible. And then we get a little treat, a Hall of Fame induction for Vitor Belfort. That was so amazing. That was really fun to go through the highlight reel, through the career highlight reel, and then to see that big man crying. Oh my gosh, I cry. I start crying when seeing him cry. That's too much. Then we had a potentially controversial fight, depending on who you ask. Not everyone is in favor of the decision. We had Amin Zahabi versus Jose Aldo, our veteran, which turned to be a retirement fight. So we had to change the fight to featherweight because it was kind of, trapped between a rock and a hard place for Zahabi. I mean, what do you really do in that scenario? Are you going to say no? Not really. But you got to say yes to fighting someone who is a lot more hydrated, and weird scenario, but it's okay. This is Jose Aldo's 23rd UFC appearance, and we got some very quirky DC tips for success. One of them being, "You're the man, remind them." What a great game plan. I love this. But he kind of did. He kind of did in round one. He was looking super Muay Thai, and we had in my opinion, an all Aldo round for the most part, with that control and a solid exchange at the end with Iman trying to keep that pressure. But that round was looking Aldo to me. And we get a couple. I'm not a fan of the tweets that pop up on the screen, but couldn't help but laugh when I saw Old Testament Aldo is back by Money Moicano. He's too funny. Yes. And in round two, Aldo was looking Old Testament Aldo, and he was doing a little bit more, nothing crazy, but I think just kind of edging out that round. Then there is a really exciting moment in the third round. Aldo hurts Zahabi, and it looks like that's going to be it, but instead of that being it, it sparks something inside of him, and he comes back with vengeance, and at that point, Aldo is completely gassed, and we again see revenge of the elbow. Vengeance of the elbow is back. There are so many elbows. It is absolutely epic, and we find ourselves with Zahabi on top, trying to finish and get Aldo out of there in that third round, because I was thinking at that time it was looking perhaps like two rounds Aldo, but that round for sure was all Iman. That was insane. Such a violent finish. He resurrected himself and put on some incredible violence, and Jose was out of that fight by the end. Didn't get the finish, but emotionally he was out of that fight, and he took off the gloves. Oh no. Said he didn't have it in his heart to go to war anymore, but he's still our legend. Body just doesn't want to cut that weight. So Iman Zahabi gets that decision win, okay, and has propelled himself forward. Featherweight fight, unexpectedly. Then we have our co-main event, our first belt that was on the line. Manon Fior attempting to be the first French person to hold a belt versus Valentina Shevchenko, our legend, current belt holder for the women's flyweight. And, Manon's really been waiting for this, and she put on a pretty good performance. Got rocked right away in that first round. I mean, nose is broken, blood is gushing. Don't like to see that, but she made some pretty awesome, pretty effective adjustments after that first round, where she really got the hurt put on her for sure. It was a super, super competitive fight. Valentina found her moment with the counter right several times. That's often her power shot, and that really was serving to be effective, but it was pretty close. It was pretty close in strikes. We, could have been 2-2, it felt like, heading into that fifth round. Got to finish it out with a big set of exchanges at the end, and we get the unanimous decision for Shevchenko, belt retained, which is pretty good news for the UFC if you ask me, because the Zhang Wei Li Valentina super fight I think is going to be then in the works, and that will generate a lot of hype for sure among the fans. I think the fans would really love to see that fight. I would love to see that fight. I mean, I think the women's flyweight division is really exciting right now, but I know that a lot of people want to see Wei Li challenge for that belt. I think that'd be pretty cool. Then we have our main event, which was a total war. We had so many great fight moments with Bilal Muhammad going against Della Maddalena for the welterweight belt. Bilal getting booed on his way out, which I just don't understand. He is so handsome and likable. Round one, they both had their moments, but JDM was definitely leading in the strikes. Bilal turning it up at the end of the round, but couldn't get that takedown that he tried to slip in there. Round two, again, pretty even, but Bilal still, it seemed, just a little bit behind, and JDM hitting all targets, like super athletic with that movement. He was working it well. Then we see that Bilal cardio, and you can visibly see him turning up the energy in round three, throwing a lot of strikes, catching up. JDM is still landing at maybe a greater percentage, but Bilal was putting on more strikes in that round. So he was able to take that super close, super competitive. Then in round four, looked like Bilal got that one. We have violence, there's blood. It's getting gritty. Such an exciting fight at such an incredible pace. JD was causing a lot of damage, and Bilal was being cardio machine, wearing that storm. JDM is known for his striking. He's known for finishing fights in that way. Can't quite finish Bilal because he is tough, championship tough, cut from the top tier welterweight cloth that is offered. Really competitive. A very, very solid 48-47 or 49-46. A very, very solid unanimous decision win for JDM. A pretty fun shakeup for the welterweight division. And right after, we have Islam looking to be double champ, ready to move up, sending his tweets, his words out there, and JDM looking to potentially avenge Volk. Very, very cool to have two Aussie champions. What a moment for Australia. Seriously, a moment. Very cool. There were so many exciting fights. I really don't think that there was one fight on this card that was a snooze. Every fight had moments of war, and we got to see two very technical, unanimous decision wins, very championship style wins to close the night. What was your favorite fight of the night? I gotta say, it was very cool to see Jasmine Jasudavicius get her first ever rear naked choke win, always evolving in the sport. But I think that my fight of the night was Ayman Zahabi versus Jose Aldo, just because of so many tides that turned and the way that fight ended. But let me know. I also think that the main event was in contention, of course. That was very, very exciting. That had everything. So much violence. JDM was able to deal with the takedowns, which that was unexpected for me. I think unexpected for a lot of people, because we haven't seen JDM in a while, and last time takedowns were such a clear weakness, but we evolve. And JDM coming back from a serious injury as well. Maybe some of us don't know, but he had some nasty, I think he broke his forearm. He had to take a lot of time off, and he took the switcheroo. That's the other thing too. He was supposed to be fighting Leon Edwards. None of this was supposed to even happen. The Shavkat injury created, a cascading domino effect, and now Della Maddalena is the welterweight champion, the second Australian champion to hold the belt right now, coming in with very little momentum and having not seen him since his fight against Gilbert Burns. Very, very cool. Lots to happen next. What is to happen next? How does this, what does this mean for Islam versus Ilya? Does it mean anything? What do you think is next for JDM? Do you want to see Islam Makhachev move up and fight him? Do you want to see Islam fight Ilya first? There's a lots in the works right now, and Dana White strategically avoided the press conference after the fights because of that, in my opinion. Let me know your song of the night. This is my song of the night. You're going to have to look it up and investigate yourself. Check it out. Link in the description as well. Yes. And let me know whatever else. Favorite fight and anything. Anything else.